Welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to introduce Amitay Eshel today. He's a dear friend of the Biohack Lab and really a phenomenal researcher in everything biohacking. And especially he married his passion of innovative skin hacks with his entrepreneurship and co-founded Goose Skincare, which we'll talk about today. But it's a pleasure to have you with us. We're finally here, and you'll be happy to answer your questions after the session is done. So we'll have 15 minutes to ask all your questions. You can keep them for later, and enjoy.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. While this is loading, I think it's appropriate to tell you a little bit about myself, even though most people here actually know me. But I wonder how many know the journey that led me to co-founding together with my wife Anastasia a skincare company. Because I'm not a person that you would innately think would found a skincare company. I started my first. I come from Israel originally. My first career was in the Israeli military. I joined special operations and ended up being the head of reconnaissance for Israeli special operations, the land commando part of Israeli special operations, and that was my first career for about 6 years. And I cannot say that I was interested in either the way I looked or even my aging process at the time at all. But I was always a contrarian, which also led me to kind of opt out of a military career. But also led me to maybe resist a little bit the draw of the tech industry, if you would, that is very prevalent in Israel. So a person such as myself normally would be recruited to tech, to high tech in Israel, which is about 40-50% of the GDP in Israel. And I sought direction in other fields and actually got recruited to be an executive in a therapeutic laser company that still exists, is still out there. And I basically recognized that this industry is pivoting towards consumer-facing devices. What we know now as biohacking, back then, 15 years ago, I called consumer-facing medical devices, which if you think about it, it's a lot of what biohacking is today. But I was one of the people who started the consumer-based red light therapy market. And what's very interesting and kind of understanding how I ended up in making people look better is that if you can imagine a therapeutic laser and the way that it is sold to physicians or practitioners, it is, and we have a few here that will concur. It's a lot about the therapeutic benefits, looking at a tissue, how it's going to respond, etc. But we found out that when we talked to consumers, they could not give less of a fudge about it at all. We talk and you see their eyes glazing over, but suddenly when you say collagen, the eyes lit up and you had a completely different conversation. So that was kind of like a window into an understanding that you can affect people's entire health journey or their investment in themselves and their health through speaking to wherever their self-esteem lies, basically. And that was my first understanding that this is a way for us to positively affect people, and that this is a field within a field, or there is a Venn diagram that actually coalesces here. When that company got sold and we had some spare change, I was very interested in NAD IVs. I thought NAD IVs are the greatest thing since gluten-free bread, as I say. And what the problem was that an IV back then was, $1,000, over $1,000 actually. And we tried to make a product that will replace that the same way you have testosterone creams right now. We tried to make a product that you would apply on your skin and would go into your bloodstream and improve, circulating NAD levels by applying it to your skin. And I am happy to tell you that we failed. And what happened is we found out that the skin really took it locally, those little building blocks, these Lego pieces of NAD, and it improved the amount of cellular NAD in a very the diameter was extremely small. So we made lemonade out of lemons and started a skincare company. And what this talk today is about is what we found out afterwards. What we found out, I'm happy to say again, that we could not improve dramatically people's skin, even though we improved that most fundamental player in youth, which is called your NAD levels, or one of the most fundamental players in longevity and optimal cellular performance and resilience, which is NAD levels. The next few years, that was already, by the way, 2017 we had a product. 2017, it took us about 3 years to then become a viable product on the shelf, because we had to consciously be able to tell you, hey, we will improve the way that you look, not only the way that you look under a microscope. And this talk today is really about the fundamental understanding, the basic understanding of what it takes to rewind your appearance, but also your cellular age. Some people will say biological age. I'm spoiler alert, this is a marketing term. There is no such thing, doesn't exist, because there's no baseline to compare it to, right? But the functional age, the way that our cells function, we can actually modulate that, and we're going to talk about it today. So a little bit about this talk. We're going to talk about, first of all, about how can you affect cells on their, or the function of your skin at the most fundamental level. And really what we're trying to do is we are going to recreate order. I think it's very important to understand that when our cells are young, or when our skin is young and functioning correctly, it is doing so in an orderly fashion. What aging is, at its most fundamental level, is entropy. Is entropy introduced into the system. It is unrepaired damage and function that is going awry. And that is extremely difficult to recreate, because you need to recreate order. And I think it's very important to understand, because most of what companies sell us today is what we call like anti-aging, really is the appearance of youth. Okay? It is making you appear younger and not function younger. And the reason is because you can recreate the appearance of order, but order, like youthful function, requires dramatically different set of actions, which we're going to talk about today, but can affect you for a longer period of time. Might take, this guy agrees with me, it might take longer for us to create the results that we all crave, or we might never get them, because we will understand why right now, but these will be much more fundamental results that your future you will like as well. And I think that's something that is important to understand. I want to talk, there are key, within that, I want to talk about 3 key processes that we are going to explore, or that we should explore when we talk about youthful aging in the skin. Mainly intrinsic aging, aging that is driven from within the body. How do we eat? Do we have mental feelings in our mouth that contribute to things? So everything that we treat, how do we treat our body, and how will that age us? And extrinsic aging. Extrinsic aging is environment that drives aging in our skin. And who here believes that the better they treat themselves, the better their skin is going to look? I'm going to even ask a different question. How many people here at some point, for whatever reason, said, you know what, I'm not going to invest in, either like expensive skincare, or I'm not planning on having plastic surgery in the future. I'm not planning on going and having like expensive treatments. I'm going to treat myself well from the inside. I'm sorry, probably shouldn't slap myself here on the mic. You are very, very much correct in doing so. That is the most fundamental level. The bad news are, that's the good news. The bad news are, this is about 20% of the reason your skin is going to age. Okay, so intrinsic aging is about 20% of the overall drivers of skin aging. 80% is what we call extrinsic aging, aging from the environment. And I would like someone that knows the answer very quickly. What would you describe as extrinsic aging? What is something in the environment that's going to drive
Pollution.
the sun? Oh, someone said pollution because they already consume my content, unfortunately. Anyway, so yeah, so UV damage is what we all is synonymous with extrinsic aging if we give it some thought. So in our Western society, you heard the person that honked at us, right? At me. You heard her cell phone ring, right? You heard someone said pollution here. UV damage, if we live in a Western society, is a less big factor in extrinsic aging than the other environmental factors combined. Pollution, heavy metals, EMF, glyphosates, smoke, which is, so pollution can be kind of broken down to many different aspects. So these together actually affect you more than UV damage. And they play together with UV damage, which we're going to look at in a second, in driving. So they kind of both gang up on you, and they have a synergistic effect, negative synergistic effect, as far as like driving skin aging. And now we get to why do we need to understand that at the most basic level? Why do we want to do that? First, as a consumer, we need to learn what is skin aging and how it is driven, because skincare industry is a multi-trillion-dollar industry that is built on stories told to consumers. Okay, so the results and the stories almost have nothing to do with each other in skin aging. And it's very important for us. We had a conversation, a few people outside and myself had a conversation when we started this. By the way, you're just in time. We had a conversation about, what could drive aging, etc. And it got very confusing very fast. So we need to understand where we are as far as a consumer, how we understand it, and how can we use that framework in order to make good decisions. Another thing that is very, very interesting is that we normally think of skin aging as maybe an isolated function, right? We normally think of skin aging as something that I can feed or starve from the inside, but we never think of our skin as an organ that actually kind of completes the picture of our entire body. So if I told you I'm drinking a lot of alcohol, would it be positive or negative towards my health? It would be negative, and you could kind of make an argument that it damages my liver, creates what we call NAFLD and NASH, which are liver diseases, and drives aging across my body. But that also is true with our skin. And there are multiple reasons to that, but the main reason is because one of the end processes that is happening when we are propagating aging is the have you ever heard about zombie cells? Mm-hmm. Is the accumulation of cells that are so confused, the information of how to be a positive contributor is so sparse that these cells actually are doing the opposite. They propagate aging throughout our skin. And what we are starting to understand is that they can also hijack some sensory inputs that our skin provides to our brain and actually hijack that and propagate inflammation and aging to our brain and then to our body. These are a series of studies from Portugal that are becoming very popular right now. Okay, so the skin can actually drive aging in the body, and not only our body driving aging in the skin. And I did mention the starving of youthful information. So anyone here familiar with David Sinclair?
Yes.
David Sinclair is the Harvard scientist or the head of the longevity lab at Harvard. He gained popularity, I think, by appearing on Joe Rogan a bunch of times, by getting molecules like resveratrol and NAD precursors, kind of very popular part of nomenclature. Also famous for doing some controversial things as far as like managing research to show positive effects of some of the molecules he was financially invested in. But in general, he's considered somewhat of the oracle of longevity. And David Sinclair did something very interesting. Aside from the molecules that he's talking about, he had a theory that is called the information theory of aging. The information theory of aging says that we all have in our DNA the recipe for what it means to be a functioning youthful cell. And with the time, with diminishing action of genes and the enzymes then called of genes called sirtuins, among 17 other genes, by the way, that are less popular, or enzymes that are less popular. But he showed how we start to lose the information of what it means to be a youthful cell. So the cell gets more and more and more confused. Okay, so our skin cell, if we go back to our skin cell and we're saying, what is a very popular thing to say? Like, we lose how much percent of collagen per year? 1% per year. Normally, that's what people say. But what happens is the recipe of what it means to be a functioning, collagen creating cell, the information there lowers, and the cell is less able to do what it's supposed to do. And we are now left with a cell that cannot access the information. Imagine like a CD. Anyone that is in this lecture and is interested in skincare, I assume has used CDs before. CD, if we scratch it, we lose some of that information there, right? Well, that is one point of it. Okay, and we can think of any function of any accumulation of unrepaired damage, which we would call aging, kind of starting there in that loss of information of how do we repair it, how do we react to a certain thing. And something really cool about that David Sinclair, in his theory, found or showed that we always have the ability to access the youthful information. It is very difficult, it sometimes is dangerous, but we can always attempt, or there's always like a way to polish that CD and access that youthful information. So there is a way not only to appear younger, there is a way to be younger. What I would say about that is David was so enthusiastic about this theory of his. Some interesting information is that he wrote the book, Lifespan, I believe the book is called, about that theory, about 3 or 4 years before he published the study, because it takes much longer to publish a study than to publish a book. So just to show you how invested he was in that idea. And the study, by the way, only got published in Nature or Cell, December of 2023. The book is, again, pre-pandemic. So just imagine how excited he was about this idea. So again, how do we achieve? I'm actually going to give you the end of the lecture a little bit now, in order to make sure that you get value early if you need to leave, or if really the deep dive we're gonna do here is less interesting to you, and that's fine. But we're gonna kind of cut to the chase. So how do we reverse damage? How do we imbue youthful function on our cells, on skin, in an algorithmical way? So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to look at what are the common signs of damage. What does it mean? How does damage look like in our cell? We're going to identify which factors contribute to that damage. Okay, so we need to know how damage looks like. What we cannot measure, we cannot change, right? But then we need to look at what contributes to that damage. We will be looking at what does science says are the most innovative ways for us to repair that damage. We're going to look at either treatments like legit heavy duty devices and treatments, but we're going to also look at molecules that we can infer and research how they affect specific skin cells, because we know how they affect other organisms, the rest of our body, etc. And then we're going to look at how do we, so if we have if we have the ability, and that's what I told you in the beginning, okay? Awesome. That's what I told you in the beginning. You came just in time, and I say it only to you. So, as I told you in the beginning, we found a way to increase NAD in your skin. And we also found out you're not going to necessarily look younger if we did that. Okay? Now, this is kind of this part, right? We recognized how damage looks like, or how aging looks like. It's the reduction of NAD in useful NAD in our skin. We recognize that. We recognize how to reverse it. We followed, studies on how we can kind of, have cells accept what are viable building blocks, precursors that we can provide to the skin. How are they valid? All of the good stuff. But then we look at the skin and there is a missing piece. And the missing piece is the second part, which is the demand for renewal and repair. Okay? And I think there is a very, there is a way to do that in a way that is too much, too little, not congruent with our biology. So we are going to go into that. And then we're going to also go into the end. What's important is how do we look in the end, right? So how do I look? Everyone asked always, right? So I think this is us cutting to the chase. This is what's important here. How do we make a more youthful functioning tissue looking in the mirror, looking the same? Or if we had an issue our skin was dealing with, that's why I always kind of, not necessarily younger. You won't necessarily look better if your skin is functioning in a younger way. And the reason is the skin has no idea wrinkles an issue, right? If I am a customer of a patient of Alpha Dental, if I had a tooth that got a little knock, okay, and it now healed wrong, it looks different. I'm going to come to them, 20 years later, which I have, and I'm going to tell them, hey, can you just, tell the tooth to go back to its place? The body has no idea it needs to do that, right? It healed in a certain way. So how do we go back and communicate to the body? We're going to talk about that. That's why we can do too little, too much, and different, which is not congruent. We're going to talk about how do we communicate to the body in the best way. Hey, that wrinkle, that laxity, we really got to do something about that, okay? So let's talk a little bit about the currency of damage. One of the questions that I get asked a lot is about, is the sun good or bad? Right? I was now on a podcast with Luke Story, which Luke Story's audience, they are a more, I would say, more kind of hippie or more like a flower people type crowd. And the amount of hate these flower people have towards a person that tells them to put sunscreen is pretty incredible. But there is a lot of questioning, or there's a big movement now towards the sun is your friend. Just go and be under the sun as much as possible. First of all, I'll offer a perspective. None of the people who tell you this look good. Just take that as it may. Video, I should be careful. But at the end of the day, why am I saying all of that? I'm saying that because the currency at the end of the day for all of those environmental stressors and a lot of the intrinsic aging that we experience is increasing of oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is energy that went rogue. Okay? That is why the sun, is it good or bad, both come from the same seed of energy passing through us. Okay? When energy passes through us, exactly like me coming to be to come get healed in this center. Okay? I can have the energy to get healed, but I can also wreak havoc in this location by having energy that is misplaced by myself, by the way, as well. Okay? And oxidative stress is really the best example of that in our body. So when we talk about extrinsic factors like UV radiation, aside from, by the way, side note, physically fusing parts of our DNA together and rendering them less useful. Again, we talked about that youthful function and access to youthful function. Most of what it does, it is getting that energy converted to free radicals, to oxidative stress. Free radicals and oxidative stress, oxidative stress is part of the free radical family. And within the free radical family, we actually have some good players, okay? So we don't want to use that term too much. So they get converted into oxidative stress. And that oxidative stress is an unstable energy that looks to balance itself. And by balancing itself, it off-balances other cellular functions, okay? Exactly like if someone has a lot of mental and physical angst, and they're going to come to talk to you off the bat, they're gonna leave better and you're gonna leave probably worse, okay? So we can think of oxidative stress like that. And that would disrupt a lot of the youthful function in our skin, which would lead to unrepaired damage. Okay, at the end of the day, we can describe aging as the accumulation of unrepaired damage. As I said before, I'm going to say it again. So the first thing that we want to look at as far as like ingredients that we want to interact with as a whole in our body and of course in our skin are antioxidant, and I know you've heard about it a lot, okay? But this is a player in the large scheme of things, and I would offer you to look at it from a slightly different viewpoint. So from studies that were done in Australia, we know that the same sunblock, if I attached in a effective antioxidant to it, do you want you to come from the side? If we attach it an antioxidant to it, you see this is, for example, this is energy that, anyway, so if we attach an antioxidant to it, is twice as effective. You came in the middle of the point, you came just in time, by the way, I'm saying only to it. But if
He's
we,
a liar.
yes, that's true.
And I'm saying that only to you.
Yes. But if you take the same sunblock and within the same formulation, I also add an effective antioxidant, this sunblock is twice as effective. Okay? So what I'm saying right now is when we look at the grand scheme of how we treat our body, antioxidants are an incredible force multiplier, but they are less the hero of whatever we are trying to do. Okay, just bear that in mind. So, what is this oxidative stress is going to do at the end of the day? We said that someone comes to you with a lot of angst, they're going to leave with less, you're going to leave with more. That angst is chronic inflammation. Or the way I like to frame it, chronic information. Right? I thought about it recently, that's why it's not in the slide. So inflammation is a driver of repair. Remember we said before that we kind of need to play a dance between youthful function and signal of repair. Inflammation is the way that our body uses it. That's the language of signaling repair. Hey, repair here. But the same way unrepaired damage is the form of aging that we're talking about, chronic inflammation is residual information, like a background noise that is staying in the system and disrupting, the body understanding what responses it needs to do where. Okay? And we can see it, by the way, in many, 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 many different aspects. we have a hyperbaric chamber here in the biohack lab. There are conditions in which a person is going to get into the biohack, to the hyperbaric chamber and get out worse. Right? If they have so much chronic inflammation that the body cannot act on signals of repair after that, you might overload the body and the mitochondria. Okay? So when we going back to treating our body from the inside, going back to even from the outside, going back to the fundamentals of youthful function, we do need to resolve that driver of inflammation, of chronic inflammation, which is oxidative stress, but we also need to solve the chronic information, that background noise in our system, if we want to create a change, whether it is in the function or in the appearance, right? Yeah. So, as a question, the sun is a friend of foe. So I was kind of cooking you until now, no pun intended, and I was getting you to the point of looking at the sun and what does it do? How does it drive either youthful function or aging? So I mentioned before that we are changing physiologically our DNA, okay? And that's something we gotta understand. In our discussion about is the sun good, is the sun bad? And the reason I have this slide, by the way, is because of the increasing confusion within the biohacking space, the health optimization space about the sun. So I think it's super important for us just to understand what is going on here. How can we address that? So first and foremost, before we talk about anything else, we need to understand that there's something we cannot deny, which is literally less youthful function due to the UV passing through our DNA and fusing together parts of our DNA, which is then unreadable. Okay? It's like me using like a pen on your, gluten-free, keto-friendly recipe of a cake and sugar-free, and I'm going to blot out some of the letters there. You're going to have a harder time making that cake. You might use flour. Read that thing. Anyway, so that's the first thing that we got to understand. Now let's talk about that other duality of the UV rays propagating or assisting in the synthesis of vitamin D and the conversion of those rays to oxidative stress, okay? We need to understand that sun exposure is not, it is like saying a multivitamin. Okay, I need to know what are the constituents, UVA to UVB to infrared and red ratio that I want in order to get the best results. Okay, for example, I mentioned red light therapy before. Red light therapy was born out of the mimicking of the positive rays within the sun, as far as like mitochondrial function is concerned. Okay. What we really want to do is we want to time, as far as like, I'm going to just give you the bottom line so we can move on from me waging war against people that want to be in the sun all the time. So we want to time our sun exposure to before 10 a.m. or after 4 p.m. As a general rule, you could also be a few minutes outside noon time, okay? The second thing we want to understand is, I said before, the currency at the end of the day is oxidative stress, okay? So if I am exposed to a lot of EMF, I'm inside. I'm exposed to a lot of pollution. I'm eating poorly. I have a lot of stress, etc., etc., etc. I am now going to be more susceptible to the bad effects of sun exposure and less to the good effects, okay? So in general, as a stratagem, I want to actually expose areas in my body that are normally covered. First, it's because artificial blue light is as effective as disrupting mitochondrial function as red light therapy is good for it. Okay, so just imagine, you being 20 minutes a day in front of red light therapy, now 10 minutes a day, right? And how great you're feeling. We're under artificial blue light all the time. For our eyes, we protect it, but the skin's eyes, we don't protect it. So that's kind of the protection I have against that, right? So when I go out to the sun and I want to get those benefits, let's expose areas that are less exposed normally, right? We have a 4.5-month or a 5-month-old, sorry, he had a birthday the other day. He gets tanned very easily, but we always get him outside kind of with long clothes. So one day we took him outside without the clothes, and he was almost see-through in some areas. Oh my God! So these areas are, that's the difference between the areas that we want to expose. By the way, they're more efficient at converting them. Again, they're more pristine as far as their oxidative load, oxidative stress load. So we definitely want to expose those areas. Okay. We are also better at synthesizing vitamin D in our torso than we are in our extremities. Okay. So, and by the way, so this is a little bit kind of a general understanding, but as a functional thing that we can do, let's say tomorrow, there is a study out of Yonsei University in Seoul, Korea, or maybe it's the University of Seoul. There are a couple studies about red light therapy and sun exposure and pigmentation. You will get less sun damage if you expose yourself to red light therapy beforehand. Okay? Why is that? It's because at the end of the day, we're lowering oxidative stress and we're also improving mitochondrial function. So if we're doing the opposite, if we're around EMF all the time, we're next to a router, right? Or your phone is in your pocket like mine. Okay, anyway, if we are under artificial light, if we're stressed, anything of the things that I mentioned, if we're next to a busy road or whatever that is, we are now basically exacerbating that oxidative stress in our body, and we're going to be more subjected to that from the sun. So bear that in mind. Okay. Pollution and lifestyle, I kind of covered. I really want to move past that, but alcohol. I know my good friend Ben Greenfield is now kind of the poster child of you're allowed to have like a couple glasses of alcohol per day. That's fine, Steph. That's fine, no problem. I'm kidding.
Feel better.
Good. But just within the confines of our understanding, we want to make sure that we know how we balance our lives, and if it's something that we do, if we smoke, if it could be any type, if we combust anything really. Okay, if you breathe in your what's the name of the stick?
Oh, the incense.
Incense too much. Okay, you need to understand it plays a negative role within that paradigm. Okay, within the confines of that. So bear in mind, pollution, carbon monoxide. If we live, by the way, if any of us here or people watching, the trillions watching,
Yes.
if anyone lives kind of closer to higher not altitudes, but rather longitudes, we are getting more glyphosate. So glyphosates normally are generated more in the close to the equator. That's where most agriculture is, and they travel through the air and they condense and fall on us in colder in colder environments, climates. So bear that in mind, that you also are getting excess exposure to glyphosates, which also drives skin aging. EMF and blue light we mentioned, so I'll move on. So how can we first affect the mechanisms of youthful function? You got here just in time. You can sit there if you want, or you can stand here, whatever you want.
I'm the model.
Oh, yeah. Yes. We pay with jokes though. Anyway, so the first thing that we need to realize is, how do we understand youthful function in organisms, and we apply it to skincare. So how can we make cells behave like younger cells? Kind of rewind that information that we need in order to stimulate repair. And some of the best molecules that we know of are the molecules that I hope all of you are taking as supplements. Okay? First is NAD precursors. Has anyone heard about NAD before this lecture?
Yes.
What NAD is the currency for repair in our body. It is also a currency for energy creation, but that's the reason a person in 1923 got a Nobel Prize for the discovery of NAD, or the discovery was 20 years before, but they kind of realized what it does in order to allow us to create energy, which is obviously extremely important for us to repair our body. But what we started to understand when longevity research kind of got its stride about 10 years ago is that there are 600 processes that require NAD for youthful function. So replenishing NAD is in the bottom of everything that we think of as youthful function. We also found another incredible molecule that is called spermidine. Anyone here know what spermidine is? Mm-hmm. So the reason it is called spermidine is because first it was found in sperm, but I want to give you the good news, or for some people the bad news. We're not making it out of sperm anymore. It is found in many different food groups, mushrooms, wheat, and it is now mainly made from heirloom wheat in Europe. Some algae it's made out of too. But spermidine can mimic fasting. So spermidine, we know that fasting is one of the best ways to affect very small organisms for longevity. So the problem with fasting, the larger the organism, the less we see those effects. Okay? So elephants shouldn't fast, but worms, we can extend it, we can double their life. We can at least, add 20% of their life. But when we talk about the skin, we go back to those smaller environments which we can affect very positively. So we can see incredible results with anything from wound healing to collagen synthesis to, to response to stressors when we use spermidine as a molecule, because it creates cellular recycling that is called autophagy. Okay? Autophagy is, I want to think about it like a chimney. Why am I saying that? Because a chimney doesn't only take out the burnt ashes or the smoke of the fire, right? It also stokes the fire, right? It also pulls oxygen from the outside and stokes the fire. Autophagy, what we're starting to understand, and spermidine at the base, at the inscription level, the DNA level of autophagy, is that it stokes repair. Because the more cellular recycling we have, the more our body has room, exactly like a fire, to invest in renewal. Okay, so these are the two most important molecules that we can think of, but there are other molecules that affect specific players in aging. We've mentioned zombie cells before, so there are companies that we hope will succeed long term, but right now research is limited to smaller players like cells in a petri dish that have peptides, for example, to treat senescent cells. But what we are using is a very interesting molecule. It's called G14, and G14 is from algae, and we've been proven that it can eliminate senescent cells in human beings, which is extremely, extremely important. And by doing all of that, by doing everything that we just said, we can show that we rewind the functional cells by 20 years. Okay, so you will respond to whatever stimulus, and we're going to talk about stimulus in a second. You'll respond to that stimulus as a 20-year younger skin. And I want to, if, again, I'm going to mention Alpha Dental again. If someone comes to you, you know what? I'm going to tell you another story. There is a plastic surgeon in Miami that is very famous. He used to be famous. I think he got very famous about 20 years ago. And in an interview in Hebrew, because he's an Orthodox Jew, so he became very famous in Israel too. He said, "Hey, I don't take anyone above 50. I don't operate on anyone above 50." Which would be counterintuitive. You're saying he's a plastic surgeon. That's majority of his job. But what he cared about is the recovery of this patient. Right? He cared about the canvas on which he is painting. So he said, what I care about is not necessarily, there are plenty of people below 50 that are going to require my services, but people above 50, I don't want to deal with complications. Right? So what we do, as far as the stimulus that we're going to talk about in a second, we improve the canvas of which then other molecules or procedures are painting on. I'll be remiss if I didn't mention one molecule that is becoming slightly controversial, which is retinol and its family of vitamin A molecules. Okay, retinol or retin-A, retinal, tretinoin, retinoic acid, etc., is an integral part of cellular turnover in our skin. So our body makes it and uses it, or it doesn't make it, it uses it from food, but it shuttles it around the body and uses it in different forms. It has a specific system to store it even for later, for a rainy day, as we say. But retinol got a bad rap for many reasons, mainly because it causes sensitivity if not used correctly. Okay, so retinol is a hero ingredient as far as we are concerned in stimulating that repair topically before we go into all the devices and everything like that. Okay, so this is our best weapon as far as like signaling to the body that we need repair. Something for you to consider when you think of retinols and their function is that retinol is only active in our skin for 24 hours. After that, our body knows what to do with it. It goes up, I know what to do with it, I'm going to store it. And it's not in its active form anymore. So what we need to do is to use a form of retinol that we can use very often. Not the strongest form we can use a couple times a week. Okay, that's an older paradigm that we see obviously shifting for good reasons. Anything other than that, it's collateral damage, which we could think of as that chronic inflammation, that chronic inflammation. So we don't want to stoke that. We want to stoke, controlled damage that the body can then treat and heal. Yeah.
I was in the first clinical study for retin-A, UAP in 1969.
You look fantastic.
It was bad.
It did something.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Let's talk about devices in general. This is, again, I am a persona non grata in a lot of medical device companies because I talk about another industry that is really meant to be a story-driven industry and not a result-driven industry. Okay, and that's something very important to understand. Why is that? It's because when we are moving from that youthful function, when we're moving away from creating the perfect canvas and we're getting into the paint brushes and the paint, we now need the finest brush to create detail. We don't want to create broad strokes. That creates chronic inflammation. And that creates something the body cannot handle well. Okay? And most devices are energy-based. Okay? Before that, we will mention devices that are not energy-based, like microneedling, like professional peels. We're going to mention any type of maybe lymphatic drainage, if you want, any type of gua sha. All of those processes, even though I bet you can even damage someone with gua sha if you just went crazy. But for the most part, these don't create unrepairable damage in the tissue. But what does, has anyone ever heard about radio frequency? Right? Has anyone heard about, please, you're you want to tell her?
Let me help you. Come in and have a seat.
Yeah.
And you're just in time.
You're just in
and
time.
You're quite a liar, and I'm saying this to only you. Have
Yes.
a seat.
You're the first one who heard this.
Another one here.
Actually, sir, you are just in time.
You haven't missed a thing.
Nothing. First slide. So, when we talk about devices and energy devices, they actually are not meant to necessarily treat your skin. Let's start with more shallow devices, like lasers. For the most part, lasers, as long as they're done well and our canvas is reacting positively to that. These are devices that I recommend doing. Not often, but I recommend doing. Okay, a resurfacing laser every 5 years is fantastic. Okay, they target very shallow area of the skin. Okay, an area that the skin knows how to correct, and an area that the skin expects some damage. Okay, that's very important to understand. The skin understand that damage will occur there. When we get deeper into the skin, when we get into deeper layers, which are subdermal or what we call the hypodermis, the innermost layer of the skin, or even subdermal layer, we get to areas where damage is not expected by the body. And when that happens, normally in nature, this is a pretty grave injury. Okay? So if I have a gash that gets to that level, what my skin is looking to do, or my body now is looking to do, is to scar that area. Okay? So when we talk about the radio frequency devices, radio frequency microneedling, high energy frequency ultrasound, high intensity frequency ultrasound, all of those devices, they are heating up, they're targeting the tissue that is below our skin and creating damage in that layer. That is, if you talk to a plastic surgeon, that is their nightmare. Okay, their nightmare is operating on people that have done these treatments. Okay, Ulthera, Morpheus 8. We can, you know, I can name devices. These are just very popular devices, but these devices create damage that normally what we think of the results is the consequent inflammation. Okay, so if we read again one of those devices, they say something like that: you may see results in the beginning, but the best results are going to be in 3 weeks and may improve up to 3 months. Okay, do you know why they say all of that? It's because the tissue is getting inflamed. The height of inflammation is around 3 weeks. Swelling of the tissue, which we look our best because it's not swelling on the surface, it's below our skin, so we added volume. Mm-hmm. And by 3 months, that swelling is getting resolved by scar tissue, by adhesion of tissue, which is now inoperable, or for the most part, or much harder to operate on, but also it is not congruent with the movement of the body. Okay, so we mechanically aged the body. And they also say, oh, you probably need, you know, a series of treatment within those 3 months, okay, to maintain swelling. So we're getting to a process where we're saying we're waiting those 3 months and we're looking in the mirror and we're saying, wow, the results really went away. I probably need another series of those treatments. That is probably the worst way. To create long-lasting results in our skin. I'm not against plastic surgery, by the way, but this is something that obviously we should prepare, you know, for something so severe for a very long time, for all our lives, and that would be a better and less aggressive choice on the body than those treatments. Okay, so just for you to know, plastic surgery is more gentle than these treatments. Okay. Talking a little bit about, before that, I do want to talk a little bit about fillers and Botox. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm not against Botox. I think Botox is exactly like sun exposure or alcohol. There are things that are completely fine as long as you understand that this is something that contributes to overall toxic load in your body, and you need to balance it out with other good. You saw the next slide about nutrition and stuff like that. So you understand, with other good actions in your life. There is a problem with fillers though. So what we're going to start to see, and this is very, very new, you're going to start to hear about it probably if your phones are listening to you by the time you get home. We now know that hyaluronic acid-based fillers are not causing cancer, but they're promoting cancer in the body. Okay? First and foremost, we normally think, has anyone here, no one has done fillers, that I know, but who here knows how often fillers are recommended to be replenished.
Every 6 months?
Every 9 months, 6 to 9 months, depends on the filler. So fillers last in your skin for years. Not only that, there is a gelling effect of fillers and your skin tissue, which forms a new hybrid tissue, and that actually never leaves. Okay, that tissue impairs many processes, but mainly lymphatic drainage. Okay? Our lymph system is the system that is responsible for taking toxins out of our system and dumping it. So by having that system not operate well, we can increase toxicity in the tissue, therefore drive cancer, feed cancer, and other processes that are not great for us. Another thing that will happen, just as a general note for fillers in general, is something called perception deviation. It means that if you see my son being walked around here somewhere, I look at him every day. I think he's very cute, but I do not notice him getting older day by day. And that is because the increments are too small for my eye to kind of notice. When we have, we did a lip filler, or we filled up over here, our brain gets used to that look, and that filled up look will look to us the same way we looked to us before the filler in a very short amount of time. And that is why you see people who are starting to use fillers, a lot of the times, whether it is movie stars or just people that we know, or the actual injectors, by the way, we get to them and they look overdone. They look more than what we would like for ourselves, right? That is because they see fillers on people all the time, and they see them on themselves all the time. So their perception is now deviated. What normal is now deviated, okay? I would say, by the way, just to conclude, if you are interested in fillers, the science of fat grafting is improving, and it's becoming more safe, so that's a safe alternative. So feeding your skin, and again, I'm not a diet guru. I am not interested in putting my hat, in throwing my hat into the diet wars of the 21st century. But what I would say is this: as far as our skin is concerned, antioxidants are very important, and a low inflammatory diet is very important. Okay, because again, we want to diminish the oxidative stress and the inflammatory.
What do you call a low inflammatory diet?
FODMAP,
I
for
never
example.
heard that.
FODMAP would be, so there are foods that increase inflammation in your body. For example, milk. Okay, milk is meant to, and I'm going to break it down for you in a second, but conceptually, milk is meant to grow things. Okay, milk is meant to be fed by my son or a calf in order for them to grow. So a lot of these signals our bodies going to extrapolate from milk are pro-growth signals. Okay, for example, insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1, which is overexpressed when we drink milk. Okay, to the extent that bodybuilders, true story, will go on Craigslist and buy breast milk. It's an industry.
Well,
And when we were strapped for cash, no I'm kidding. But this is something that is legit, and they do it. That's a joke. But
Usually that's American milk compared to European milk. All
well,
that
she's
bad
Russian. No, what you mean?
Your American milk is full of hormones versus.
no, anything, just milk is made for growth.
Well, I will. You are saying, I think what you are talking about is a very good point. The discussion is different, so I would actually finish that point, say that is an example for it. We can get into other examples, but one would argue kale is pro-inflammatory. Other would argue it's less inflammatory. But as a driver of skin aging, we want to lower inflammation in the body. Sugar is the main driver of inflammation in the body. to your point about American, European, how dare you? Pasteurized milk. Pasteurized milk is harder on your body to process. It lacks the enzymes for your body to break it down. Normally they are reintroduced. By the way, I think the majority in the world of these enzymes are introduced from camel milk. So even if you're drinking cow's milk, some of it is camel. Whether you like it or not. But the bottom line is that the more pasteurized something is, by the way, all of your juice that you buy in the store is pasteurized. The more pasteurized something is, the harder for your body to break it down, sometimes actually the easiest. When we talk about juice, since what is happening is a pasteurized form of that juice, which is now just water and sugar, basically, it is now easier on your body to break down. Something's going to break. Anyway, so it's now easier on your body to break down. Therefore, you're getting actually you're getting higher elevated sugar AGEs or drivers of growth, by the way, that are derived from sugar. I'll give you like another example. If you want to kind of look like a magician and kind of diagnose something as someone as pre-diabetic, if anyone has like little tags, like skin tags here, you could hypothesize they're pre-diabetic. That is because this is like overgrowth, like skin overgrowths here. You could hypothesize that they're pre-diabetic because this is a signal for growth that has come out, that has gotten out of control, that normally is driven by sugar or by lax insulin response. Okay. Supplements that I recommend are, just to go shortly, are supplements that improve mineral content in the body, mineralization of the body, mainly humic and fulvic acid, which are, I would say, like shuttles for minerals in our body. Obviously, magnesium is extremely important. Magnesium is extremely important for many things, but it is also very important for our body to convert NAD precursors into NAD in our cells. So that's very important. NAD precursors are very important. Normally, they're going to stay within your organs, by the way. They're not going to really propagate as far as like the skin. And that there's many reasons for that. First of all, like priority. But the second, when I say priority, it is not only the fact that they pass through your liver first. It's, for example, for nicotinamide riboside, which is more NR, which people would know, like true Niagen, for example. It is a more researched version rather than NMN, which I mentioned David Sinclair. So David Sinclair is a proponent of NMN. NR actually has more NR kinase in our liver or in our kidneys. So we are going to get better conversion there. We need those enzymes to convert NR to NAD, excuse me. So for the most part, we're going to get elevated levels where we have more of those enzymes. That, having said that, they also get priority because they just process it first. So about 95% will stay in your liver, unfortunately. One of the, how dare you, Fanny? One of the best supplements we can take for skin health is actually hyaluronic acid supplement orally. Okay, so hyaluronic acid is a better ingredient orally than it is topically. Okay, hyaluronic acid for your skin actually doesn't do much, but orally it's incredible.
How much should you take?
What?
How much should you take?
About 150 milligrams. It will depend on your body weight. It mainly depends on how sensitive your gut is, because hyaluronic acid can sensitize your gut a little bit. But for the most part, I would start at 150 milligrams and try to go up. Another great supplement is obviously spermidine. Okay, what we call full spectrum spermidine. Full spectrum spermidine means it also has other things like precursors that get, like putrescine and spermine, that get converted into spermidine. So two great companies are Spermidine Life, which we put our money where our mouth is. This is the company that we invested in research in order to produce a product together with them. But another one is Puremedy. It's mainly for Europe. They come from Europe. They're very popular in Europe. So these are two companies that you can look at. By the way, to answer your point, gluten is pro-inflammatory.
ChatGPT just educated me, so.
Yeah.
Anti-inflammatory.
This is entirely from ChatGPT. I don't even know what I'm talking about. It'll know. Okay. So again, let's talk a little bit about a proactive. So what do we do? At the end of the day, what I told you right now is kind of the journey of a longevity skincare company and our view of what it means to have younger looking skin by younger function, right? But what does it mean as far as like longevity applied to skincare? We talked about molecules like NAD, like spermidine. We now know how to apply them to the skin in a way which will not only prolong the youthful state of the skin, but they actually can take care of three different pillars. The first pillar is how my skin looks and performs right now. The second pillar is that longevity, is how will my future self look. But there's a third pillar which is resilience, okay? Going back to teeth, we have how are my teeth now? How will my teeth be in 20 years? But also, how will my teeth look like if I get kicked in the face tomorrow? Sorry for the imagery, but if I bump, I don't know, something less aggressive, okay? If I bump into something, okay? So there are three pillars. So we now know how to apply those three pillars in skincare, which is very important. And we need a full routine for that. We need to wash our face, preferably with a cleanser that also strips heavy metals and pollution from our skin, and also strips enzymes that are harmful, like CD38, which lowers NAD. We need a serum or an essence. Essence is another word of saying like a pre-serum. Okay, but serums give your skin, they're the heavy hitters. They can take one aspect and basically give direction to your routine. So when someone comes to us and says, hey, I am interested in reducing wrinkles, okay? Really, it is the same routine as someone who is interested in reducing pigmentation, or someone who is interested in improving laxity, or fill in the blank, whatever that is. Because the direction would be the serum. Moisturizer, it could be a moisturizer that's richer in active ingredients, but to our points that we spoke before, you can use many other companies to hydrate your skin and use a good company as a serum, okay? If you want the best of everything, we make it, but that's not the point. You don't have to use the best in every product. So a moisturizer could just be a moisturizer. Yeah.
How about the interim? How aggressive do you get for the toner after washing the face?
So a toner, it's a great question. Toner is an older, the word, okay? Now a toner can mean something else. But a toner was born out of the need to rebalance your pH. Older cleansers, the way that they worked is by stripping away a lot of oils, but also rendering your acid mantle dysfunctional. Okay, so you were left with a pH with an acid. The acidity to alkalinity in your skin was off balance. So you had to use a toner to bring it back to normal. Why is that? It's because the other skincare was designed to be used with that acidity. So a lot of the time, skincare doesn't work on a specific person and will work on another person because they have a different pH. Okay, so we need a pH that balanced around 4 to 6. Okay, and the product should be around 4 to 6. So sometimes the product is a 4, and someone's a 6. That product wouldn't work on them the same way as someone that's like a 4, right? So for the most part, toner is a little bit obsolete. Nowadays, medical skincare companies, by the way, medical skincare is not a real term. It's a marketing term. It could mean we sell only to doctors, by the way. But there's no body that says you're medical, okay? Doesn't work like that. As opposed to therapeutic. Medical skincare companies now said, okay, I have that, I've preconditioned the consumer to use a toner. I'm going to put other things there. So we have like pads that have some glycolic acid and things like that, okay? But that's not a real toner. I mean, if you want to have a peeling agent, that's fine. I wouldn't recommend doing it every day, but you could do that. But it's not a toner. So toner is a little bit obsolete. Instead of a toner, I would use an essence. I said before, that's kind of a pre-serum. Essence, a lot of the times, is to increase hydration in the skin. Again, being a biohacking skincare company, what we did is we used very, very, very quick to be utilized NAD precursors and some other cool molecules that then improve the reaction of your skin to toners to serums or moisturizer or whatever that is. But for the most part, it's for added hydration. Okay.
What about like witch hazel?
What about?
Witch hazel,
Yeah.
is that like a tone? Like,
Yeah, again, that's not a toner, but it is a nice product that the verbiage is use it like a toner because of its ability to, decrease some sebum or other things, some inflammation. It's a great product. Normally, when you buy witch hazel, you're really buying not really witch hazel. You're buying like a cosmetic product that has a lot of like oil stripping properties by other ingredients, mainly ethanol-based ingredients, and in the label says witch hazel, which is fine, but we should know what it is. So pore reducing also doesn't exist. Your pores are one size, and now how do they appear as a different size? Okay, so normally when we say pore reducing, I wouldn't even go there. Again, going back, we have a moisturizer. Moisturizer, very important, can have active ingredients. They're normally not going to absorb to the same level of serums, okay? So even if we pay for active ingredients, these active ingredients should be congruent with things that we want on our microbiome, or skin surface, or our less deep layers of our skin, okay?
Is there any place for food grade 3% hydrogen peroxide? Or is it just too harsh and not to be used?
Yeah, I mean, after you cleanse, yeah, when the skin is clean, you could use that if you want. Yeah, I wouldn't, because you're increasing oxidative stress. But you could. Hypochlorous HCl, hypochlorous acid, could be used. Yeah, right. But again, there's no real reason. We don't really want to kill bacteria in the skin. We definitely want to cultivate very low. So in our gut, recently Dr. Bush, what's his name? Very famous Zach Bush. Said something that I respect. Obviously the guy's incredible, but he doesn't understand skin. So he said, well, exactly like our gut, our skin needs a multitude of bacteria. It's an opportunity for more bacterial. Is he calling?
To watch.
Your phone. It's your watch.
To watch.
Yeah. Anyway. Anyway, I'm sorry, Dr. Bush, but I'll say one thing. He said our skin actually does not. You're good. I'll wait. Anyway, our skin does not need the diversity of bacteria. Okay, that is not what our skin needs. We need to cultivate very specific types of bacteria. We can do that in many forms. That's for a different lecture. But things that kill off bacteria allow for then bacteria that we actually don't want to be propagating in the skin to grow.
Speaking of skin microbiome.
Yeah.
Our culture promotes showering 2-3 times a day. How does that affect skin aging?
So that would affect overall body aging, not only skin aging, because what you're doing is, again, you are starving your skin off of the positive aspects of bacterial growth, and that creates something, a term I coined, which is leaky skin. And a lot of the times we can talk about leaky skin as far as permeability of molecules, like we would think of as in our gut. But it's not that, it's the permeability of disruptive signals Okay, so when I have bacteria, the bacteria has something that's called a quorum. It is the sensory aspect of bacteria and communicative aspect of bacteria. So when we are disrupting the bacterial diversity, the very low diversity, but the bacterial makeup that we want in our skin, by showering a lot and then going to the environment and contracting other types of bacteria, interacting with people, by the way. So interact with people that you trust there. Anyway, so when you're doing that, you are now creating information dysbiosis in your skin, which propagates again to your brain, to your gut, to different areas. So I would be careful with showering very often, and if you do, then don't lather up, okay? Especially, for example, if you're doing any type of sports. Okay? We don't actually want to wash ourselves before doing sports. You're more sticky afterwards, you're going to contract more bacteria. If you're kind of cleaning the slate before you're doing sports, you want to smell good maybe before your basketball game. You're going to be around people. That's not the best idea. Come stinky to the butt.
No, the type of filter you have, using a hydrogen filter, it's going to make a big difference than just using a tap water filter or showering.
Shower water filters are not necessarily what I would focus my money on, because you are not the major aspects of molecules that will harm your skin, again, heavy metals, chemicals, things that are in water, are mainly detached from water through reverse osmosis, and you are not getting that from shower filters. Having said that, we do have a shower filter at home because Anastasia bought it through a commercial. But we do not. They did say it's going to help. Yes, they showed a lot of sure. Anyway, so this doesn't. So these are carried within the molecules per se. They are not. The micron size of them is irrelevant to normal filters. That's as far as filters is concerned. If you want to imbue water with more hydrogen, it's a different conversation. That I would say I'd have you drink it. Definitely, I would be uninterested in it hitting your skin. But you do you. I mean,
What's the benefit of drinking the hydrogen water?
few things, but mainly for your gut microbiome and more less oxidative stress in your body. Thank you. Okay, let's go. Even though we're already in Q&A, I'll just say about ongoing research. There are two different things that I would like you to kind of look at. First is something very interesting that is done in the lab, in the biohacking lab, which I'm very excited about, which is the rewinding of stem cell function. Okay. So one thing that that is incredible is something like Dr. Stiena's treatment, which is called V-cell, very small embryonic-like stem cells, which takes older stem cells that have already lost a lot of their youthful information or their whole information, and kind of rewinds them. That's one aspect. Another aspect is on a more cellular level through factors that are called Yamanaka factors, which are ways for us to really go back to our more youthful state as far as like really cellular function in our body. It's still on a very early research because the potential for cancer is enormous. Okay, that's number one. Another area is really, again, you cannot change what you cannot measure. So the measurement of different aspects of the skin, anything from really identifying all of the drivers of aging, what we call the hallmarks of aging. We started with 9, now we're going to have 24 soon. Okay, there are 12 that are common, but more are being represented or being uncovered all the time. One of them, which I mentioned when we talked about the radio frequency and HIFU and stuff like that, is the mechanical changes to the tissue. It's a new hallmark of aging. Okay. So these are kind of the two areas of research that we're very interested. So from from hallmarks of aging all the way to how do we affect specific hallmarks like, rapamycin, sort of senescent cellular burden, to improving cell-to-cell communication, to improving mitochondrial function, to improving nutrient sensing. So all of those little different players and how we affect. Okay, Q&A, which you guys just thought it's every other slide. Yes, yes, sir.
Can you reduce pore size? And I've got huge pores in my nose. I don't know how to moisturize. I'm afraid to moisturize.
Okay, so when you were on your phone, what happened was I said pore size is a constant. Pore size is not something that changes. Your pores are not they don't have a muscle around them that contracts or expands. What happens is a few things. One thing is their appearance because of different factors like shininess of a tissue, or the accumulation of material in the pore, which then expresses itself optically as a bigger pore. Okay, this can be treated, and it can be treated in a few different levels, if you would. First level is using some kind of polish or peel or something like that on a more regular basis. That's number one. Another one is retinol, which we talked about, because it helps you shed off those layers of skins that are part of what is accumulating in your pore. More advanced solutions are, there is one of the peptide derivatives that we use. It's actually not a peptide, but a signaling molecule that we use from a peptide called LL37, which is normally used for no-tail fungus, toenail fungus. Is a signaling molecule that does a few things in your body. One of them is it balances the sebum accumulation in pores, but another one, it actually helps to preserve subcutaneous fat. It's this magical molecule. If you wanted a specific brand that specializes only in that molecule, there is Definage. It is a brand that is medical grade. You failed the test because you know that there is no such thing as medical grade, but it is sold through doctors. But we use the molecule, a very similar molecule as well, in a product called ProCare, and use that definitely. But I would say retinol is your best option as far as just a regular product you can use every day.
Until you get to that point. So if you're at the point where you're working on dealing with your pore size, my fear is putting moisturizer on it and gunk it up further.
Retinol would definitely help with that. But moisturizer, the only thing it's going to do within those confines is actually kind of, as you said, gunking it up together in your pore. But this is something that a good moisturizer is not going to do. A non-comedogenic moisturizer is not going to do.
Huh?
My son does not agree with me though.
Okay.
We have a question from the Zoom.
Yes.
They were asking if it's okay to do soft microneedling or
Yes.
nano. Okay.
No, microneedling as a whole, as long as it's not radio frequency microneedling, is recommended. Okay? Micro laser, yeah, recommended.
And is there anything to do, like you were saying, there's something to do to maximize the impact of whatever intervention, so prior to or post microneedling?
Great question. So retinol is one of the things that you would want to do. I'm going to give you a few different things, but that's number one. This is as far as like products that you're going to use at home. I would, with magical ingredients that we are the only ones right now that are using, but not for long, is spermidine, because again, you're stoking that repair flame. NAD precursors, of course, are extremely important because you're improving the reaction to those microneedling. I'm talking about professional microneedling more because at-home microneedling is not actually reaching the depth which would stimulate repair at that level. It's more about thickening the outer layer of the skin, etc. Another thing that you can do from a more holistic point of view is use peptides such as BPC-157 and GHKCU. So BPC-157 is a peptide that is normally expressed as far as a larger group in your gut when there is damage to the gut lining. So this is actually a kind of pro-repair peptide that when you inject it and goes systemic, it kind of goes after inflammation. And one of the things that it encodes, because you can think of a peptide as a kind of code, like a computer code, it encodes collagen deposition. So that's something, very good. And so GHKCU is kind of the skin anti-aging peptides for many different reasons. It also helps with building a nice thick collagen and elastin layer. One of the other things that GHKCU does is that it helps with encoding of another gene that's called LUM, or lumicins. And lumicins, you can think of them as the brick layers of collagen. Right word. Collagen's the brick, it lays it. And it also lowers with age, one of those things. I think, as far as the Zoom, something, and I'll let you ask the question, but something that was asked even before this presentation is melasma. And I actually have melasma. As someone that has a skincare brand, that's something that I experiment on myself pretty often. And if you come and speak to me close, you'll see some pigmentation here. And it really depends on how I treat myself outside and inside, as far as like how this looks. And it's a very interesting kind of N of 1 study. Lower retinols that you can use on a regular basis are very important for melasma, together with a sun protectant or an enviroprotectant that will make sure you're not getting any inflammation on your skin from the environment or oxidative stress from the environment. I'll give you, again, product that we make is called BioShield SPF 40. The reason we made it is to block not only sunblock or not only UV, but all the other environmental stressors that I mentioned. If you said, this guy is trying to sell us something, we're going to buy something he doesn't sell, that's fine. I would look at an ingredient that is called ectoin. Ectoin, E-C-T-O-I-N. Ectoin is more and more popular in skincare right now. Again, it's one of those ingredients that we pioneered and now is pretty common. Alastin, the brand called Alastin, has a sunblock with ectoin. And it is significantly cheaper than our sunblock. It doesn't protect against all the other things that I said, but this is a very good, less expensive product to use.
What about OneSkin?
OneSkin is a good brand as far as their formulation. That's a good formulation. It's not going to harm you, anything like that. It's a brand that their approach to what would benefit your skin is different than our approach. Okay. This is our approach, the approach that says, hey, you have the player, you need to balance between two things. You need to balance between your youthful function of the skin and then the ingredients or the instructions and how these instructions are being placed in order to create that synergy. OneSkin has a different approach, which says if we take care of senescent cells, everything else will fall into line, which is, if true, is much better than our approach. Clearly, we believe something different. Another thing, and that's something we spoke about outside, my personal opinion is that peptides are not very efficient when you talk about topical application as a whole, okay? The idea of peptide being effective is a dichotomy in and on its own, is a contradiction in and on its own, because a peptide that is wholeheartedly, that is extremely effective will create blunting of response. So normally when you use a peptide, there is one group of peptides that is not playing by these rules, but normally when you use a peptide, you're exhausting the response to that peptide, okay? A peptide is like a drunk guy trying to get into their house, okay? And the house is locked, for that matter. So it's a key, and the guy is trying to look for the lock. The more he's going to do that, the less the key will actually work. It could break the lock, basically, okay? It needs to be around there for a long time, and you're causing damage to the lock. Not real damage in our concern, but what I'm trying to explain is, for a peptide to work, it also needs to be there for a long time, which in skincare is like very difficult. The body not kind of processing it or moving it around or things like that, or it not absorbing well. And you need to de-drunk the time, okay? So That doesn't work in reality. We do it a little bit around GHKCU, and then also we say, hey, GHKCU, just inject it if you really want the result. It's just a supporting ingredient at best. The peptides that do not play by these rules are neuropeptides. Neuropeptides are peptides that we want them to exhaust. We want them to work like a mini Botox and exhaust nerves on a sub-regular basis. So exhaust the nerve kind of recovers, but another nerve is now exhausted. So it kind of is 10% of what Botox is. It cannot go more than that, even if you put 100%. If you put too little, it doesn't work at all. So that's one group. Arginine, Lupacil, SNAP8. These are peptides that do not play by these rules.
So BP 157 by capsule?
But would help your gut, which I recommend. I am right now taking it as a capsule, and which would improve everything in your body, including your skin. But if you wanted it in preparation for an aesthetic procedure you're doing, I would start 6 weeks before that procedure and do it by injection. Actually, we talked about it. BPC, body protective compound, 157.
Can you clarify what you were saying before about the retinol before or after doing the microneedling? Was it before?
I would say have it as part of your routine,
Meaning your daily routine?
your daily routine.
Right, but which then begs the question, the strength, because before you were saying it is very strong, not so good. So what is strong, what is weak?
That's completely subjective. But in general, what is now, so I'll use a brand, there is an incredible brand of skincare, that what they did was, and it's genius, what they did was, by the way, if we're kind of going out of, if something's going on, let me know, okay? Because but they did something, the brand is called Muesli. And what they did was they said, hey, telemedicine is a real thing. We're going to sell you something that normally you needed a prescription for, but all you're gonna do is we're gonna fake a telemedicine process, basically, and give you that very high potency product. And they kind of drove that industry. So right now, everyone's kind of using tretinoin because suddenly retinoic acid, like the stronger version of those vitamin A's, now it's kind of, sold as a commodity. The problem is that what you're starting to see are people who want the strongest but can only use it once a week. Why can you only use it once a week? Because the collateral damage is so large. Okay, so what you want to do is actually start pretty low. So again, going back to what we did, because I'm explaining the decision making that a company does in order for you to be able to use it, and also someone that requires something stronger will be able to use it. What I want to do is create a retinol or vitamin A that only provides you with the cellular turnover effects of vitamin A with the least amount of collateral damage, which if you have the most sensitive skin in the world, will start using once or twice a week. But you'll be able to build up to using it every day. And someone that has by the way, men that have 25% more collagen because of testosterone, or people that just have a less sensitive skin, would even be able to use it twice a day, morning and evening. Okay, so it's very, very, what I'm saying is that the weakness, there should be a certain strength which we know is effective, and from that we only want to increase instance and repeatability and not strength.
Thank you for that. And what would be the evidence of collateral damage from too strong retinol?
So there's something called retinization, which happens in the first 6 weeks of introducing more vitamin A to your skin, which is redness, flakiness, and irritation.
Seen that?
Yeah.
Done that. Just want to be clear.
Yeah. That's why people use retinol. They
No
want to be clear.
longer.
No, they want to be clear. Never mind.
A
Yes.
little small in the uptake.
Yes.
So I just started taking Spermidine Light a couple
You know what? I'm so sorry, but sorry about that.
That's okay.
Well, what I want to say, first of all, I love buying skin creams. It's like my most favorite thing to do in the world. All I look for is just natural, pure, single ingredient stuff, like maybe for the body, just plain coconut oil or just shea butter. If I look at ingredients, if I start seeing a lot of ingredients, if I see water, alcohol is the first two ingredients in a lotion, I never buy it. So what do you think about just the basics on the skin, just plain, single ingredient, earth, natural, like just coconut oil or shea butter
It's great.
products and soap for the
Great,
skin?
great question. You're not going to get good results, but you're going to get a very good, I believe, lifestyle. So the results holistically to your mood, to the way that you treat yourself and the way that you correspond with your environment, I believe, might trump any argument I would have. And that's legit, my truthful answer. That is for, if you are a person that's looking for that, that's what you should be doing. A lot of people are looking for different things. So there is this very, very influential influencer that has millions of followers. He's a fitness guy, and all he cares about is losing his hair. And he posted about a specific shampoo that is extremely chemical, but does in fact stop hair loss to some extent. And he said, I have all these things that I'm doing in my life that are positive. Here is where I sacrifice some of them. I'm doing all of that so I can do that one thing that I care about more than fill in the blank. And that's an extreme example to what I'm trying to say, okay? That would be the difference between going into a hyperbaric chamber or doing breath work, right? If you can do breath work, great. But the difference you're going to get clinically, at the end of the day, going to the hyperbaric chamber, or my favorite version, CVAC, to doing breath work is obviously robust.
I think that's like the difference with biohacking. It's very chemical versus, I don't know, I'm learning, but my mindset is just natural, organic, pure, single ingredient.
Yes, that's a great point, and I'll hijack your point. I would say.
What soap do you use?
What soap do I use? It's called Adaptogenic Cleanser by Young Goose.
Oh, body soap? Like,
Well, I can, yeah, because we have a lot of it, so I'll use it on my body. To be honest. But I would say, I'll hijack your point, and I'll say this. Normally when we use when we use nature, we're not built to, look beautiful forever. Your body as a woman, actually, men are a little bit different, so I apologize, but a woman is designed, or the body is designed to communicate sexual vitality until a certain point, until perimenopause hits, basically, or menopause hits. And then your body goes through chemical hormonal changes which propagate the appearance of youthfulness at a slower rate, at a diminished rate. Because the body does not need to communicate the ability to bear children or healthy children and support them as much. It communicates different things, or it prioritizes defense. It prioritizes lowering of processes. And I'll give you an example. Senescent cells, mitochondrial dysfunction, and epigenetic changes are all things that if we knock them out in a mouse, that mouse will be dead very early in life. But these processes that keep you alive at a very young age are aging you as you grow older. So some of these processes need to change in order to make sure that you live long in a cave, not today, which we can have some strategies around it. But they were very beneficial when you were youthful, okay? Having said that, what biohacking is kind of taking out the bad of, sun exposure, let's say, and making red light therapy, right? What we only want. So since you're not designed, nature is not designed at all. Nature is appearing out of necessity, out of evolution, etc. But since you didn't evolve to look good forever, we need now to kind of finagle different systems. We need to adjust different things in order to design a way for your body to be able to do it.
so you don't like coconut oil for the skin, or just shea
Coconut
butter?
oil can build, you can become allergic to it, and in general it does clog pores. And that's like one thing. Another thing, oils in general are not the best hydrators. The hydration comes from within your body, from bloodstream, etc. Hydration does not come from the outside. Conditioning can come from the outside. Skin bends better, but it's not hydration. A good hydrated moisturizer would prevent transepidermal water loss which means how much water your body's losing. And oils, especially oils that are liquid, are horrible at it, are non-existent. So tallow, all of those things. It's a great story, but they're not good hydrators or moisturizers. They're good conditioners.
We had a pretty long question that we're trying to.
No, it wasn't a long question. Somebody wanted to know if you had said HIFU was good or bad.
Bad. And I'm not talking about home devices,
Yeah,
like radio frequency, HIFU, all of those, when you talk about home devices, are not
Yeah.
real. So that's.
when they're very abrasive, like.
So I was talking about,
And I think we have something like, ice plunge for skin.
it's a great question. So it lowers inflammation systemically, it's great.
was the question?
Ice plunge.
Cold plunge for skin.
Yeah.
Or crying.
So first of all, when people say, do like just put your face in ice, it doesn't do anything for your skin. Actually, it might kind of cause stress on the skin. That's number one. If you do longer plunges, you're also stressing the body, so you actually you're less able to deal with with stresses from the environment directly afterwards.
Because you're overdoing it, right?
Because you're not overdoing it per se, you're overdoing it if you would be now combining it with other stressors. Right? So that's not a protective measure. So if you are interested in your skin health, specifically, your skin's going to be challenged by the sun or whatever, you don't want to be in the ice for more than like 2 minutes. Having said that, 11 minutes a week, or I don't believe in that number, but if cumulatively, between 10 to 20 minutes a week of cold exposure, deliberate cold exposure, does lower inflammatory load in the body, does improve things like heat shock proteins. By the way, cold shock and heat shock proteins are the same thing. They're just released by different temperatures. These are lower inflammation as well, and you could also do. You're also moving catecholamines. You're moving stress molecules in your brain, in your body, that can accumulate, which causes stress. Again, one of the major things that ages your body is your HPA axis, which manages kind of stress in the body. So by using ice bath as a type of way to move catecholamines around or stress molecules in the brain, you can reduce aging in the body as a whole. Again, so there's great benefits to it. Not just putting your face in ice water, it's completely irrelevant. It's nothing. It's a TikTok reel.
So exactly, the people that put their I start my morning off with putting my bowl in my face.
Maybe
in the
if you're
water.
puffy, you're gonna have some contraction, and you can reduce some puffiness. Go for it.
It's good for if you're triggered and activated, then it lowers your blood
Yes,
pressure.
that's true. It lowers blood pressure, but you can do it with your hands and feet as well. You might actually get a better response by hands and feet. So you have 3 places in your body where the blood kind of going from your heart and into your heart meets. This is here. I'm pointing at my cheekbones. Anyone that can see, our hands and our feet. Okay, so hands and feet are larger surface areas, and again, temperatures in general stress our skin. So we don't want to do it overdo it. So I think hands and feet, for our kind of discussion, might be better. But you're right.
What does it do for you if you put your hands or feet in cold water?
It will cool your blood, because that's where there is no response of your body to balance the temperature of the blood. That's why a product like Avicen that heats up your blood through you putting your hand in works, because the response of your body kind of drawing blood to your internal organs to reheat it doesn't exist in those areas.
And the Therasage, when you sit, it's like a at-home sauna. It has not like a little foot thing,
Yeah.
and it heats from the feet. So the results are immediate
Yeah.
for you to warm up.
Yeah, there's such like a infrared sauna tent. I have one in my house. I use it often. I love it.
And what happens when your skin is so sensitive because a lot of work or acne or work?
So first, I would say that probably would be, again, that's like the question. This question can encompass so many things, because the first thing that you said, stress, does drive skin aging. It drives skin aging through cortisol, which expresses itself in the skin with MMPs, which drive skin aging. But the responses I think the responses that you're asking about, which are responses, visible responses that lead to acne or things like that, or redness, they can happen from skin, as we said, like leaky skin, but they can also happen from other things like dust mites. So if you do have some kind of acneic rosacea, and I wanted to offer you a very cost-effective solution, I'd go to like CVS and buy ivermectin cream, 0.5%. 1% is prescription and costs like hundreds of dollars. 0.5% is like $35. I'll do that. Make sure I don't have any like things like dust mites or things like that are exacerbating it, and then introduce, what we call postbiotics. You can do it in a few products. You can do it with our product, with something like the amplifying essence or our
The green
serums and
tea.
creams, but we also can do it with other products like Civ. Civ is a kind of probiotic serum that, it's not our company, it's a different company.
But you have things in your conversation. Which is the name of the cream?
So amplifying essence would have postbiotics?
No, in the CVA. Or
Ivermectin.
Oh,
maybe
ivermectin.
also you have it.
No, I would start with ivermectin cream, 0.5%, that's the easiest. But if you ask me what I refer to as products that you would use after, are either Civ, it's a cheaper option, $68, or you could use our products that have those ingredients within them. So they'll treat other things, but they will also treat them.
What about sweating, sauna for skin?
So I think sauna is overrated as far as like detoxification, as far as like us sweating things out of us. But it is incredible for us for detoxification as a whole through, again, other functions in the body. So it's not necessarily only about the skin. Sweating is very good for your skin. We do need to make sure that we clean it afterwards, especially if we have contact with other people, if you have contact sports or not even contact sports, if someone coughs, I don't know what. Like if we're in an environment where we share germs with other people, we cannot just let it stay on our skin. If we're at the gym and we sit on a machine after someone else, all of those things. If we're in a sauna and we sit somewhere where someone else was there, anything like that, we really want to make sure we wash our skin afterwards, especially if you prescribe to the notion that you are sweating off anything through your skin. You are not evaporating it. It is actually now contained in the sweat that is on your skin. One point I would say about that is sunblocks and chemical sunblocks, where chemical sunblocks work just below the skin surface. And what happens when you do sweat, because that's one of the things that the sun does, it tends to lock those toxins on the surface or below the surface of your skin, kind of concentrate them, and that kind of actually build toxicity. So that's why mineral sunblocks that sit on the skin are preferred from that point of view, and my point of view as well. That's it.
Okay, yes, yeah.
Thank you so much for coming, everybody. We have a special announcement. Next event is going to be August 22nd, 24th. It's going to be with Dr. Pakula, Dr. Maya Asi right here, and Dr. Sienna Steckel. That's going to be highlighting ozone. And thank you again for coming. You can come and enjoy in front, and we have another surprise in front for you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much again, Mami. Thanks so much. Go showering before my gym. Sunlight, like 10 to 4. It's permanent, let's go.
Oh, you didn't ask your question.
No, I didn't.
Thank you. Thank you very much.